This is a story about love, betrayal, and the hidden price of greed. What happens when the person you trust the most values luxury more than loyalty? This story is broken down into 5 parts, each packed with suspense, secrets, and shocking twists. Stay tuned until the end, you won't believe where this journey leads. I'm Lucas, 28 years old. For 3 years I was married to Maya, 27. On the surface we had everything. A beautiful home, financial security, a love story that seemed built to last. We weren't billionaires, but we were comfortable. I had a great job, one that paid well enough that I never had to stress about money. I wasn't flying private jets or buying penthouses, but I didn't have to check my bank account before making a purchase either. Maya and I both came from modest backgrounds. We grew up knowing what it meant to stretch a dollar, to appreciate what we had. That's why I never expected either of us to suddenly crave extravagance. But somewhere along the way something changed. At first it was so small I didn't notice. Maya had always liked nice things, but she never seemed obsessed with them. She wasn't the type to demand luxury brands or turn her nose up at something just because it wasn't expensive. At least that's what I believed. Then little by little her standards shifted. A dress wasn't just a dress anymore, it had to be designer. A purse wasn't just a purse, it had to be a statement. The small things she used to love, the things that made her happy before, suddenly they weren't good enough. At first I didn't think much of it. Maybe she was just influenced by social media, caught up in trends. But then came the comparisons. At first it was her friends. Did you hear what Natalie's boyfriend did for her? He surprised her with Italian leather heels. And another designer bag. And then the sigh. The long, exaggerated sigh that wasn't just a sigh, it was a message. A silent, pointed complaint. I knew what she wanted. I'd push down my irritation and remind her that we didn't need to throw money at unnecessary things. That there was no reason to spend thousands of dollars on a handbag when she already had plenty. But one day I gave in. For her birthday, I bought her one of those luxury handbags she had been hinting at. Not just any bag, but the bag. The one she had been obsessing over for months. Her reaction was everything I hoped for, pure excitement. She hugged me, kissed me, paraded the bag around, showing it off at every opportunity. And for a moment I thought, maybe that's all she wanted. Maybe this will be enough. I was wrong. 6 months later, I noticed she wasn't using the bag anymore. It sat on the shelf, collecting dust. When I asked her why, she just shrugged. Oh, it's out of fashion now. That was the first time I felt it, that deep, gnawing unease. But it got worse. She stopped comparing us to her friends. Instead, she started comparing us to influencers. You have to see this, she'd say, shoving her phone in my face. Look what this guy got his wife, a Lamborghini. Can you imagine? I could imagine spending $250,000 on a car. I could also imagine going bankrupt trying to keep up with people who had more money than common sense. At first I laughed it off. It was just harmless admiration, right? But the look in her eyes told me otherwise. She didn't just admire them. She wanted their life. She wanted the designer clothes, the extravagant vacations, the endless luxury. And more than anything, she wanted me to provide it for her. Maybe I could have kept trying. Maybe I could have thrown more money at her happiness, booked expensive trips, filled her closet with luxury brands. But the thing about materialism is that it's a bottomless pit. No matter how much you give, it's never enough. First, she wanted a handbag. Now she wanted a Lamborghini. So I put my foot down. I sat her down and laid it all out. Maya, we might be doing well, but we're not millionaires. We can afford nice things, but we can't be reckless. We have to be smart. She nodded, smiled, said she understood. But I saw it in her eyes. A flicker of something I couldn't quite place. Disappointment? Resentment? Whatever it was, I ignored it. I told myself she would get over it. That everything would go back to normal. I didn't know it at the time, but that was the beginning of the end. The first crack in the foundation. And once those cracks start spreading, there's no stopping them. I used to believe that when relationships fall apart, it happens in one earth-shattering moment. A brutal fight, a terrible confession, a single act of betrayal that sends everything crashing down. But the truth is, sometimes love doesn't die in a fiery explosion. Sometimes it rots slowly, quietly. And by the time you realize it's dead, it's already been decaying for months. Maya changed. Or maybe I just started seeing her for who she really was. It was like living with a stranger. Someone who looked like my wife, talked like my wife, but wasn't the same person I had married. The warmth in her voice faded, replaced with something cold, detached. She still smiled, still played the part of the loving wife. But the space between us grew wider. A subtle distance that I couldn't name but could feel in my bones. I convinced myself it was stress. that maybe she was struggling with something and didn't know how to talk about it. So I tried. I asked her if something was wrong, if she was unhappy. And every time she would smile, a perfect practice smile that never reached her eyes, and say, "Everything's fine, babe." But it wasn't. And deep down I knew it. The late night started next. At first it was a dinner with friends here and there. Then it became a regular thing. She'd dress up in expensive outfits, spray herself with perfume, and head out without telling me where she was going or when she'd be back. I asked her about it, trying to keep my voice light, casual. "Oh, just girls' night," she'd say. "You wouldn't enjoy it. Just a bunch of us hanging out." At first I believed her. But then came the phone calls. She became secretive, guarding her phone like it was a diary filled with dangerous secrets. She'd angle the screen away from me, lower her voice when she spoke. And when I asked who she was talking to, she'd just smile. "Oh, just Natalie. Always Natalie." Until one night I saw the name flash across her screen. It wasn't Natalie. It was a name I didn't recognize. Dominic. Something inside me shifted. A sick, cold feeling crawled up my spine. I didn't ask her about it. Not yet. Because once you ask that question, "Are you cheating on me?" you can never take it back. And I wasn't ready for the answer. Then the spending habits changed. Before, Maya had always been a little materialistic, but it was within reason. Now she was reckless. New designer bags, expensive jewelry, spa treatments, things I knew she couldn't afford on her own. She wasn't using my money. At least, not directly. I checked our accounts, our credit cards. Nothing unusual. No big withdrawals, no strange transactions. Which meant someone else was paying. Someone like Dominic. I tried to ignore it. Told myself I was being paranoid. But paranoia has a way of creeping into your mind, whispering in your ear, showing you patterns you don't want to see. And one night I saw it. Proof. It was late. Nearly midnight. Maya had gone out hours ago, leaving me alone in our home, in the silence that was beginning to feel normal. I was in the kitchen when I heard the sound. A car pulling into the driveway. But it wasn't her car. I stepped to the window, peeking through the curtains. A sleek, black luxury car sat in the driveway. Not a regular car, something expensive. Something way beyond what Maya or any of her friends could afford. And then I saw them. Maya. And him. She was laughing, her hand on his chest. Their faces inches apart, close enough that my stomach twisted. Then he leaned in, whispered something in her ear. And she smiled. Not just any smile. A smile I hadn't seen in a long, long time. A smile that used to be mine. She kissed his cheek, then turned and walked toward the house, her heels clicking on the pavement. I barely had time to step away from the window before the door opened. She walked in, her eyes bright, her cheeks flushed. Like she had just spent the night falling for someone else. Our eyes met, and for a second I saw something in her expression. Hesitation, guilt, maybe even fear. But then it was gone. She gave me that same fake smile and said, "Hey babe." Like she hadn't just walked out of another man's car. Like she wasn't hiding something. Like she wasn't already halfway gone. And that was the moment I knew. I didn't have to ask. I didn't need to hear her say it. Maya was cheating on me. And the worst part? She didn't even bother to hide it anymore. I barely slept that night. My mind was racing, my heart pounding like a war drum. Every time I closed my eyes I saw her, Maya, stepping out of that car, laughing with him, touching him. And then coming home to me like nothing had happened. Like I was some kind of fool. I wanted to confront her right then and there. I wanted to scream, demand answers, throw every question at her until she had no choice but to admit the truth. But I knew Maya. She was slippery, cunning. If I pushed her too soon, she'd find a way to twist it, turn it around, make me feel like I was the one who was crazy. No. If I was going to do this, I had to be smart. The next morning I watched her. Studied her. Every move, every expression. She hummed a little tune as she made coffee, scrolling through her phone like she didn't have a care in the world. Like she wasn't actively betraying me. She felt safe. That's what got to me the most. The way she carried on like nothing was wrong, like she had already written me off. She didn't even flinch when she kissed me goodbye before heading out for the day. And the worst part? I let her. I played my role, the clueless husband, because that's what she expected. She thought she had me exactly where she wanted me, tangled in her web of lies. But I wasn't trapped. Not anymore. I had seen too much. And now it was my turn to start playing the game. The first thing I did was check her phone while she was in the shower that night. It was locked, of course. But Maya wasn't exactly the brightest when it came to security. She used the same password for everything. It took me less than a minute to get in. And what I found made me sick. Text after text. Plans, whispers, secrets. Dominic wasn't just some random guy she was having fun with, he was her future. Or at least that's what she thought. Can't wait for our weekend getaway. I hate pretending with him. It's exhausting. Soon, babe. Just a little longer. I felt my stomach drop as I read through them. She hated pretending with me? I was exhausting? 3 years of marriage. 3 years of memories, of love, of promises, and this was how she talked about me behind my back. I gripped the phone so tight my knuckles turned white. Then I kept scrolling. Because I knew, if I dug deep enough, I'd find the real truth. And I did. Maya wasn't just cheating. She wasn't just looking for a way out. She was planning something. Something bigger. She was draining money from our joint account in small, careful amounts. Shifting things around. Hiding transactions. Covering her tracks, but not well enough to stop me from finding them. And then there was the trip. This wasn't just an affair. This wasn't just some rich guy buying her gifts. She was leaving me. In 2 weeks, she had a flight booked. A first-class ticket paid for by him. One way. She was planning to disappear. Without a word. Without a goodbye. Without a second thought. I stared at the screen, feeling my heartbeat slow, my mind sharpening into something cold. Calculated. She thought she was in control. She thought she was playing me. But now I was the one holding the cards. I didn't say anything. Not yet. Over the next few days I watched. I let her think I was still oblivious. I let her kiss me in the morning, let her go out on her girls' nights, let her come home smelling like expensive cologne that wasn't mine. I let her think she was winning. But the entire time I was preparing. I started collecting every piece of evidence I could. Screenshots of texts, bank statements, flight details. I made copies, stored them in places she'd never think to check. Then I started making moves of my own. I met with a lawyer, quietly, discreetly. Told him everything. I emptied our joint account before she could. Moved the money into a private one she had no access to. I made sure every bill, every responsibility was in her name, not mine. And then, I did the one thing I knew would destroy her. I called Dominic. He answered on the second ring. Who is this? His voice was smooth, arrogant. The kind of guy who thought he was untouchable. I smiled even though he couldn't see it. This is the husband of the woman you've been screwing. Silence. Then a low chuckle. Ah, so you finally figured it out. That pissed me off. The way he said it. Like it was a joke. Like he had been waiting for me to catch up. I clenched my jaw. Stayed calm. I know everything, I said. Every message. Every plan. Every dollar she's taken from me. He didn't say anything. So I kept going. You might want to check your accounts, Dominic, I said slowly. Because if you think Maya's only been playing me, you're dead wrong. That got his attention. I heard him shift, his voice dropping. What the hell are you talking about? I let the silence stretch just long enough for his mind to start racing. Then I dropped the bomb. She's been taking money from you, hasn't she? I asked. Little by little. Just enough that you wouldn't notice. At least not yet. Another pause. Longer this time. I could practically hear the gears turning in his head. The realization sinking in. Maya thought she was so clever. Thought she was the one running the con. But she had been too greedy. She had underestimated me. And she had underestimated him. Because I could hear it in his voice. The anger. The suspicion. The doubt. I had just planted a seed. And I knew it was only a matter of time before it grew into something deadly. When I hung up the phone, I felt something I hadn't felt in weeks. Relief. Maya had no idea what was coming. She thought she was on the verge of her perfect new life. Thought she had me wrapped around her finger. But now the walls were closing in. She had 2 men about to turn on her. And when she realized what I had done, when she realized she had lost everything, I was going to enjoy every second of it. Maya stood frozen in the doorway, her suitcase beside her, her knuckles white as they gripped the handle. She looked back at me, her eyes filled with something I had never seen before, real fear. Not the kind she faked to manipulate me, not the calculated sadness she used when she wanted something. This was raw, unfiltered panic. And I reveled in it. She had spent months playing me for a fool, lying to my face, draining my accounts while she planned her perfect little escape. But she never thought, for even a second, that I would flip the game on her. Now she had nowhere to go. I leaned against the doorframe, watching her breathe heavily, her mind working overtime, scrambling for a way out. Go on, I said, nodding toward the hallway. You wanted to leave, right? Dominic was supposed to be waiting for you at the finish line. So why are you still standing here? She blinked rapidly, her throat working as she tried to come up with something, anything, to get me to fold. But I wasn't folding. I was done. Maya finally exhaled, long and shaky. I never meant to hurt you, she whispered. I tilted my head, mocking her. Oh, so what was it then? An accident? Did you trip and fall into another man's bank account? Her jaw clenched, and for a second I saw a flash of the real her. The one who didn't like being challenged. The one who had always gotten her way. But that person didn't exist anymore. Because now, she had nothing. I smirked, watching her crumble in real time. Then her phone rang again. Dominic. Her face twisted, a mix of fear and frustration. She hesitated, looking at me like she wanted me to save her. But I just stood there, waiting. With a deep breath, she finally picked up. Dom, please let me explain. I couldn't hear what he was saying, but I didn't need to. I saw it. Her face draining of color, her breathing turning shallow, her grip tightening on the phone. Her lips parted as she tried to speak, but she couldn't even form words. Then, the call cut off. I raised an eyebrow, guessing that didn't go how you wanted. Maya slowly lowered the phone, staring at the screen like she could will him to call back. I leaned in slightly, my voice dropping. Dominic's smart. He saw right through you. And now, he doesn't just want nothing to do with you. He wants to ruin you. She jerked her gaze to me, pure terror flashing in her eyes. What do you mean? She whispered. I let the silence drag. Let the tension twist tighter and tighter. Then I smiled. You really think I was the only one keeping tabs? I shook my head, amused. Dominic's not an idiot. You thought he was just some rich fool you could manipulate, but guess what? He was watching you just as much as I was. Maya shook her head, her breathing coming in fast, uneven gasps. You're lying. I shrugged. Am I? She swallowed hard, her hands shaking now. No, that's not possible. He loves me. I chuckled. No, Maya. He loved the fantasy of you. The woman you pretended to be. But now he sees what you really are. A user. A gold digger who jumps from one man to the next, always looking for the next best thing. She flinched like the words physically hurt her. I kept going. Dominic has power, Maya. And not just money. Real power. He has connections. He can make sure you never have another chance to sink your claws into someone else. No more rich boyfriends. No more easy escapes. He can shut every single door in your face. Her breathing hitched. She blinked rapidly like she was about to break down. Then, the moment that sealed her fate. Her phone buzzed with a text. She snatched it up, desperate. But the second she read it, she staggered back. I saw the words over her shoulder. You're dead to me. Don't ever contact me again. Maya choked on a sob. No. But it was real. Dominic was done with her. She had bet everything on him. And now, she was nothing. She turned back to me, tears welling in her eyes. You did this. I smiled. No, Maya. You did this. Silence. She was unraveling now, her perfect little world disintegrating in front of her. And I was enjoying every second. Finally, she whispered, what am I supposed to do? I opened the door wider. You'll figure it out. Her body trembled. She looked down at her suitcase, then at me like she was hoping, praying, I'd change my mind. But I didn't. I just stood there, watching, waiting. And then, she stepped over the threshold. I closed the door behind her, locked it, and just like that, Maya was gone. For a moment I just stood there, staring at the door, letting it all sink in. The betrayal, the lies, the months of pretending I didn't see what was happening. All of it was over. I was free. For the first time in years I felt light, like I could finally breathe. Maya? She would never be able to pull something like this again. Because now, she had nothing. No husband. No sugar daddy. No safety net. Just herself. And I had a feeling she was finally about to learn how much that was really worth. Maya used to wake up in silk sheets, sunlight filtering through floor-to-ceiling windows, the scent of designer perfume lingering in the air. Now, she woke up on a sagging mattress in a dingy one-bedroom apartment that smelled like mildew and desperation. The sound of traffic outside wasn't the soothing hum of a luxury car pulling into a gated driveway. It was blaring horns, angry voices, and the never-ending chaos of a world she never thought she'd be part of again. She sat up slowly, pressing her palms into the thin, scratchy sheets, her head throbbing from another sleepless night. She had nothing. And no one. Dominic had cut her off completely. Not just financially. He had used his connections to make sure she was blacklisted from every social circle, every high-end event, every place where she could have found another rich man to sink her claws into. It wasn't just that people didn't want to date her. They didn't even want to be seen with her. She was a cautionary tale now. Don't be like Maya. Don't get too greedy. Don't think you're irreplaceable. She clenched her jaw as she reached for her phone. Her last lifeline. She scrolled through her contacts, past names that once held power, men who used to text her good morning, beautiful, and send her money just for existing. Now, those same numbers led to cold, unfeeling, this number is no longer in service messages. She had burned every bridge. The thought made her stomach twist in panic, but she forced it down. She still had one last option. With a deep breath, she pulled up his contact. Lucas, the man she had betrayed. The man she had walked out on, thinking she was upgrading to something better. Would he still hate her? Would he even pick up? Her heart pounded as she pressed call. Ring, ring, ring. Her nails dug into her palm as she waited. Then, click. A voice. His voice. But it wasn't warm. It wasn't familiar. It was cold. Indifferent. Maya. She swallowed. Her mouth was dry. Hey, Lucas, she started, trying to keep her voice light, sweet. The way she used to when she could get anything she wanted from him. Silence. Then finally he said, "Why are you calling me?" Her stomach dropped. No anger. No sadness. Just nothing. Like she was a stranger. Like she had never meant anything to him. She forced a small laugh. I was just thinking about you. I miss you. Silence. She pushed on. I was stupid. I made mistakes. I wish I could go back. She hated saying it. She hated the way the words felt on her tongue. But she had no choice. She was drowning. And he was the only person left who might pull her out. Finally, Lucas sighed. You miss me, he repeated, his voice laced with something almost amused. It sent a chill down her spine. Yes, she whispered. I know I hurt you. But I've changed. I see things differently now. I just... Stop. The word was sharp. Final. Her breath hitched. Lucas? No, he said firmly. You don't get to do this. You don't get to leave, betray me, lie to my face for months, and then just call me when you need help. Tears burned behind her eyes. Please, she whispered. Just give me a chance. She thought he would hesitate. She thought he would consider it. But instead, he laughed. A low, bitter chuckle. Maya, I haven't thought about you in months. Her stomach dropped. I moved on, he continued. I have a new life. A better life. And trust me, you're not part of it. The words hit harder than she expected. She used to think she could always go back to him. That no matter what she did, no matter how far she strayed, Lucas would always be there, waiting. But now he didn't even care. And that was worse than anything. Goodbye, Maya, he said. And then, click. The call ended. She stared at the phone in her shaking hand, disbelief crashing over her like a tidal wave. That was it. Her last chance. Gone. For the first time, the reality settled in. She wasn't some lost, rich girl who had made a mistake and needed a second chance. She was a nobody now. Alone. Broke. Unwanted. And no one was coming to save her. The end. Fire, there you go. The final brutal ending to Maya's story. She thought she was untouchable. Thought she could always find a way out. But in the end, she lost everything. No rich boyfriend. No sugar daddy. No safety net. And the man she thought would always love her? He didn't even think about her anymore. Let me know if you loved this final fall of Maya. This is a story of greed, betrayal, and ultimate downfall. Maya had everything. A loving husband, a comfortable life, and financial security. But it wasn't enough. She wanted more. More luxury, more status, more wealth. Blinded by materialism, she betrayed the man who truly cared for her, leaving him for what she thought was a better deal. A richer man, a more glamorous life. But in the end, karma came full circle. The man she left everything for? Dropped her. Her husband? Moved on. And Maya? She was left with nothing. No money. No friends. No second chances. She thought she was playing the game. But in the end, the game played her. Have you ever witnessed or experienced a situation like this? Do you believe karma always comes back around? If this story resonated with you, let us know in the comments. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more gripping stories just like this one. Your support keeps these stories coming, so stay tuned for the next one.